I've been playing Final Fantasy XIV now for about 3 months. I'm well underway into Heaven's Ward, but I also stopped off to do every bit of optional content in A Realm Reborn. I've also been playing World of Warcraft for 20 years and have never missed a patch. So I know WoW really well, and I'm starting to learn Final Fantasy quite well. And in this video today, I wanted to outline all the reasons I think every WoW player should give Final Fantasy XIV a shot. And it's not for the reasons that you might think. You're probably expecting me to say things like, oh, well, the story's amazing, have you tried the MSQ? Or, oh my god, you can be a cat girl, kawaii. Or, of course, the super hard ultimates, or all of the customization options that you have, or the fact that you can play every single class on one character. No, it's actually none of these things, though all of those things are great reasons as to why you should try Final Fantasy XIV. No, I think you should try Final Fantasy XIV for fundamentally different reasons. And I'll note that these reasons apply to everyone, no matter how you like to play video games, whether you're a hardcore raider or a Island Sanctuary enjoyer. First things first then, there's no beta or PTR cycle. Every piece of content that releases is as near to the unknown as can be. Sure, like we've just seen with FanFest, there are sneak peeks of, say, the new job or classes, or the new zones, but you see a tiny fraction of what's actually to come. After that, you have to wait until the expansion officially releases. That means when you rush through those metaphorical gates to engage with the new regular patch updates, or the expansion launches themselves, you're experiencing the magic and wonder of new MMORPG content at the exact same time as everyone else. Fresh. Sounds amazing, and I personally can't wait for Dawn Trail because that'll be my first time experiencing that. And there's no data mining either. Now I know what you're thinking. Little to no PTR testing would mean a buggy product, or fights that are poorly tuned with wild fluctuations. Well, no. In fact, there was a recent raid that got altered by just 1%, and it resulted in the devs offering a formal apology. It actually caused quite a stir in the community.
This is fucking stupid! This is fucking stupid! This is so dumb! Why?
Which I do find quite comical when you look at just how many nerfs and buffs some WoW bosses can get. Now there's a good reason for why FF14 doesn't succumb to heavy tuning, and it comes down to the core of how the combat and the systems in the game are designed. Now, I'm not an expert on this, but my understanding and from what I've seen so far is this. There are no specs or talent trees. There's actually not much in the way of class customization, but each job is unique. The raids, at least the more difficult ones, are 8 players, which is 2 tanks, 2 healers, and then you can have any combination of DPS, but for simplicity's sake, let's say 2 melee and 2 ranged. On top of that, the gearing is more simplified. WoW offers many trinkets, weapon effects, legendaries, and generally huge jumps in item level tier to tier and difficulty to difficulty. And because there's so many players in a raid group, gearing can take you a while. If you compare clearing a boss in week 1 of World of Warcraft to clearing that same boss in, say, week 8 or week 16, it's a completely different ballgame. In FF, because of the simplification of gear, smaller raid sizes, no talent trees or specs, then the damage variance, and by variance I mean you can more accurately predict how much damage the average, say, samurai will do over the course of the fight, compared to in WoW where it's like, well, hold on a minute, did that druid DPS play feral or balance, and did they take those talents or those talents? Is much lower, so raids can more predictably be tuned by the internal test dev team. This means more often than not, the raids of FF14 really hit the mark. And the best part of all, no splits. Another thing to note when it comes to FF14 raiding is that not all the content releases at the same time, as in you don't just have LFR, normal, heroic, and mythic of the exact same bosses all releasing at the exact same time. Instead, you have different tiers of raiding. Extreme is the easiest, then you'll have Savage, then you'll have Ultimates. But they're not all of the same thing, so generally speaking, Ultimates will be of old raid bosses that have sort of been scaled up and reimagined in a way. But what that means is that when the new raid tier does come out, in theory you should already have the item level required, which means when you go in on week 1 to say an ultimate, you're probably by week 8 or week 16 probably going to be looking at a similar level of difficulty. Now I might have certain elements of that a little bit mixed up there, so please don't quote me on it, but that's roughly give or take how it works. And that's why the tuning can be so much closer. And this brings me nicely to my next point. You even get synced down on outdated content from previous patches and previous expansions, which provides evergreen content. I know this for a fact because I recently just spent 2 weeks on stream progging a raid from 10 years ago. Coils, the first raid FF14 ever introduced. As a group, we were able to sync ourselves to minimum item level with no echo, or in other terms, no fight enhancements. That meant we could experience the fight as close to the originally released fight as possible. And I'll be honest, for me, doing Coils blind was the most fun I've ever had raiding. That means if you play FF14, you can look forward to dozens of raids, not just the case of, okay, the new raid tier just released, and with that, there's literally no reason to ever go back to the content we completed just yesterday. Also, because of the smaller raid sizes, I found way more flexibility in raiding itself. No more sacrificing my evenings 3 times a week. Now I raid in the afternoon on weekdays, as and when I feel like it, and I know many non-streamer friends that have the same luxury. It's much easier to swap 1 or 2 people in and out should you need to, and continue as a solid 5 to 6 core players each raid. Next up, and this one really could take the cake, is global release. Yes, that is right, FF14 has global release, not just for expansion launches, but for patch content too. If you're a scribe or Mr. GM, then this information should really get you going. There's nothing worse than being an EU player watching NA players get the fun shiny new toys before you do. That is of course unless you're an Asian server player, in which case you watch NA and EU get the shiny new toys before you do. And this affects all types of players, not just hardcore raiders looking to abolish that unequivocal NA advantage. You know it sucks when you're watching people discover the new zone or find all the hidden charms and secrets before you've even been allowed in the door. It's like going trick-or-treating right after you've seen the 5'6" 8-year-old go and empty the entire bowl of candy sitting on the porch into his pillowcase before you could even bumble your 42-year-old self up the driveway. I'll also note that you can play on different data centers all under the same subcost. So in theory, you could play on NA and EU if you had friends in different regions. The only thing to consider with this though, is you'd still have to play 2 separate characters. As someone that has friends in gaming on both EU and NA, I love the idea of being able to simply play without ramping up subcosts. And I'll be honest, playing 2 different characters isn't even that big a deal because all the jobs are on 1 character. So you can in theory not have to go make 12 characters on EU and 12 characters on NA. Now phasing was first introduced to WoW in Wrath of the Lich King, but it's a hot topic even in today's world of Warcraft. Phasing and sharding are different, but the crux of the matter is that the people you're seeing around you isn't everyone physically around you. Also, you lose sight of who is truly on your server. It's a lot more difficult to be famous or infamous if you're inconsistently present on a layer. I'd almost forgotten the love and magic of seeing the same old faces in the same old places like when I played Vanilla WoW back in the day. That is until I picked up FF14 and realized, hold on a minute, I've seen that person before and that person, and look, there's Jesus sitting on that bench in Limsa Lominsa no matter the day and no matter the time. The lack of phasing and sharding means that the world feels more like an MMORPG. Relationships matter more, your actions matter more. There's conflicts and friction with this of course, but you get the good stuff too. And all of these aspects create a great MMORPG experience. I truly believe you need the good and the bad, just like you have in real life and real life social situations. Now finally, I don't think I could end this video without saying the biggest reason you should pick up FF14, and that's the question of, have you heard of the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV with the expanded free trial, which you can play through the entirety of A Realm Reborn and the award-winning Heaven's Ward expansion, and also the award-winning Stormblood expansion up to level 70 for free with no restrictions on playtime? Of course, FF14 is just like any other game. It has its issues. It's got problems. Just don't tell FF14 players that, or they'll cancel you. I'm not kidding. But the aim here is to showcase to people that have potentially considered FF14 and give them that big push into the game. Now let me know what made you first pick up FF14 and what's got you still playing it. Also, check me out on twitch.tv/Psybear_TV. Hope you enjoyed this one.